place, Spirit has this funny way of bringing your attention to the topic. And so my title's been out there for about 6 weeks, and so as you contemplate the information in the talk today, know that Spirit has been calling me to task on this. So spiritual law. Spiritual law affects everything we do in every moment of our lives. And we're so immersed in working with spiritual law, and we work with it so naturally that we don't even realize we're doing it. Spiritual law is, I liken to the physical force of gravity in this material world. That force of gravity is so all-encompassing. My mic is on. They say my mic is on. Is my mic is not off now. Thank you, Bev. It's actually a little loud now. So if you can turn it down enough that I can project and still be heard, that'd be great. So I was talking about how physical law is like the force of gravity in our experience. And gravity is so pervasive, so all-encompassing, we don't even realize we're working with it, unless we're dealing with one of those moments of extreme impact, like when you trip and fall and you hit the ground. I envision spiritual law as the law of cause and effect. And it has been stated in many ways by the spiritual masters all down through the ages. Most, if not all, world religions have some form of the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. That is a statement of the law of cause and effect. In the Bible, the writer in the book of the Galatians says, quote, "Whatever a man sows, that he also reaps," end quote. The group Mind Abraham, is channeled by Esther Hicks, calls it the law of attraction, and says that that which is like unto itself is drawn. The New Thought minister, David Owen Ritz, who wrote and created the class Keys to the Kingdom, writes this. He says, "The universe, although infinite in nature, functions like a closed system. What we give out at every level comes back to us in kind." And he continues on with the idea that whatever energy we attune to, those feelings, those thoughts, those intentions, those attitudes, even the material things that we put our attention on, all of these create an incoming flow that energetically matches the energy we are holding. Our brother and our way shower, Jesus, speaks about this law of cause and effect. And in the Gospel of Matthew, in the 7th chapter, first 2 verses, the writer captures these words: "Judge not, that you be not judged. For with the same judgment that you judge, you will be judged. And with the same measure with which you measure, it will be measured to you." In unity, we call this the law of mind action. Thoughts and feelings held in mind produce after their kind. Or sometimes we put it in the words of, what we focus on, we create more of. All of these different statements down through the ages are all saying, with the same measure with which you measure, you will be measured. Now, for me, the challenge with this spiritual law arises not when we work with it intentionally, not when we do that work of manifesting a new condition in our lives, for instance, improved health or increased wealth or even a more loving relationship. For me, the challenge in this law comes from all of those times when we use the law unconsciously. You see, there is a deeper aspect to this spiritual law of cause and effect that impacts us in every moment of our lives, and it arises from our true nature. Now, you're in a unity church. You are hearing a unity message. So you should not be surprised to hear the words, "You are a spiritual being." You are a spiritual being having a human experience. Our true nature is spirit, not this human body that we so identify with. We are spiritual beings. And the simple fact that our true existence is spirit is why spiritual law controls the physical experience. Now, we're so accustomed to seeing ourselves as separate individuals that we don't understand the impact that being spirit has on every part of our life. The simple truth is that universal divine love that we call God created an expression of itself in an act of creative expansion, and we came into being. We are one spirit in and part of God. Part of the godness that is all that is. And we are one spirit, having many different human expressions that only feel separate. That is why Jesus taught, with the same measure that with which you measure, you will be measured. Now, I've been working with this idea in my personal spiritual work, A Course in Miracles. And in the last month, the Course has told me this. It says that all of us seemingly separated human beings are actually the collective child of God. The Course calls it the sonship. Unity calls it the Christ. Thus, what we believe about another person, we are actually believing for the entire sonship, because there is no separation in spirit, and that is our true nature. As we measure another being, we are measuring ourselves. I offer you a quote from the Course. It says, "In your brother, in your sister, you see the picture of your own belief. Forget not this. The role you give to him is given you, and you will walk the way you pointed out to her, because it is your judgment on yourself." So I invite you to take a breath and sit with this idea for a moment. For if you are one in spirit with everyone and everything else, if we as spirit are all part of that divine energy that we call God, then what you think, what you feel, what you believe about another, you are thinking, feeling, and believing about yourself. Again, that quote from the Course. In your brother, in your sister, you see the picture of your own belief. Forget not this, for the role you give to him is given you. And you will walk the way you point out to her, because it is your judgment on yourself. Through the law of cause and effect, we are constantly creating our lives. We are creating our human experience by those thoughts, those feelings, those beliefs, those intentions and attitudes that we hold in our mind, and we are creating by those same things that we project on others. With the same measure with which we measure, it will be measured to us. Now, sometimes art provides a very clear statement of truth. An example of this is the spiritual law as it shows up and portrayed in the story of Man of La Mancha. Now, I have always loved this story, whether it was in the theater or on the movie or on song, and it struck me that it was the perfect example of how we project our inner beliefs onto others and how we create our experience from those beliefs. So the story, Don Alonso Quijano. He's an elderly gentleman of Spanish minor nobility. And as a retired gentleman, he has time to read. And he reads books on knights and chivalry until he has come to the point that his whole worldview kind of takes a shift. And he takes on a new name, Don Quixote de la Mancha. And with a simple farmer friend, Sancho Panza, taking him as his squire, they ride off into the world to revive chivalry, undo wrongs, and bring justice to the world. The power of our mind is so strong that we see what we believe. So where Sancho sees windmills, Don Quixote sees giants coming to terrorize the countryside. And when Don Quixote tilts at the giant, the windmill arm throws him into the ditch. And we are left to wonder, do we tilt at windmills? The story continues with Don Quixote arriving at a country inn that he believes to be a castle and meeting the inn's serving wench and part-time prostitute, Aldonza. Seeing Aldonza, he believes her to be the lady Dulcinea, who he has pledged eternal loyalty to. And throughout the rest of the play, it is this relationship between Aldonza and Quixote that shows us the transformative power of our belief in another. Aldonza slowly becomes Dulcinea through the power of Don Quixote's belief, and as she experiences the possibility for herself. At the end of the play, it is Dulcinea who restores the faith of Don Quixote in his vision of nobility, chivalry, and justice. With the same measure with which we measure, we will be measured. We are responsible for our lives. Don Quixote changed the life of Aldonza, and Dulcinea changed the life of Alonso Quijano. I am responsible for my life by how I see and measure you. The role I give to you is given me. What I believe about you, I believe about myself. So consider for a moment. a person in your life that you do not appreciate. Someone that you would dearly love to change. Now, I'm sure someone came to mind. How we see their behavior and the traits that are unpleasant to us is vital to our lives. With what measure are we measuring? For as we see them, we see and create for ourselves. Do we want to continue in a world of separation and lack where no one is good enough and no one is whole enough? Or do we want to live in a world where together we are creating heaven on earth? If I see another as less than, unkind, in some way broken, my simple choice is to release my attachment on what I believe about the other and ask the Spirit in me to help me to see them differently. As I release my judgments, I am released. As I see the child of God in another, I become the child of God expressing. As I am whole and loved, they are whole and loved. Taking responsibility for our lives is a challenging concept, but it can be such a gift. When we accept the truth that we are responsible for what we constantly create from our heart and from our minds, we are no longer dependent on an outside source for our life. No longer is the world doing something to us. Now we are Spirit acting as us. If we want to change our human experience, we have to change. We have the power to change our life. When we accept the responsibility for our life, we also accept the freedom in our life. So I'm going to ask you to take a leap of faith, to take a breath, and practice. Right now, right here. So, you don't have to, and if you are willing, I want you to find another person to connect to. Someone sitting here, you may know them, you may not, but I want you to find a partner. So do that right now, if you're willing. Yeah, it's okay to get up and move. Polly, here. All right. You got your partner. All right. I want you to look at them. I want you to look at them and to release all judgment about what you expect them to do or be in this moment. And then take a breath. All right. Now I invite you to see before you a child of God in human form. And take a breath. See that divine light flowing from their eyes, from their heart to you, and feel your divine light flowing to them. And take a breath. So in this holy moment, I invite you to take turns gently affirming the other. So I'll tell you the affirmation and then I'll repeat it, all right? Beloved child of God, you are whole and perfect. And I'll say it twice, slowly, and I invite you to take turns affirming it to the other. Ready? Beloved child of God, you are whole and perfect. And then the other. Beloved child of God, you are whole and perfect. Now take a breath. And I invite you to end the practice by simply saying Namaste. It is now that indeed we are open to a deeper connection, to a new flow of good from Spirit. We have a deeper love of self, a deeper love of the other. We are living now in alignment with the spiritual law of cause and effect, and we are transforming our world. So I leave you with a quote from the Course. When you meet anyone, remember it is a holy encounter. As you see him, you will see yourself. As you treat him, you will treat yourself. As you think of him, you will think of yourself. Never forget this, for in your brother, in your sister, you will find yourself or lose yourself. With the same measure with which we measure, we are measured. Namaste.